All right, welcome everyone. This is the first roundtable for Birthing a New Earth, and I couldn't be more excited to have such amazing, wise, beautiful women joining us from across the globe. We've got three women from the UK, Maha and I are in Australia, and these women have been in the industry of birth for many, many years, and they're wise wisdom keepers, birth keepers, and it's just such an honor. I feel super blessed to be here and to be sharing with you and to be hosting this. I feel we have a really juicy, potent topic that we're going to be covering today that I really feel needs to get out there. Like more information on this topic and discussions need to be having, and this is why I came up with the topic and wanted to ask you to be here today. So thank you again for being here. Our topic today is birthing, healing birth, and how this can help heal the earth. And I'm just going to introduce each one of you. We're just going to keep it very small because I want to really just keep it concise, really just share the information about the topic. And then I will put some links below that you can connect with all these women and see the beautiful things that they are doing in the world. Okay, so in the top left corner, it depends on which side you're looking at, we've got Binnie. Binnie Dansby has been in this field for over 40 years. She has assisted the first water birth in the US in 1980, which I think is the anniversary today. Is that right, Binnie?
Today, yes.
Wow.
Today, so really cool, powerful.
Right.
She is known worldwide for her empowering work in the area of ecstatic birth and ecstatic life, and has created a personal and professional developmental system called Source, Process, and Breath Work. Okay, and then diagonal from her, we've got Maha, Maha Al Musa, and she as well has been in the field for so long. She's been for over 25 years in the field. She is an award-winning international birth mentor, author, and speaker, and she is the founder of Embodied Birth and Belly Dance Birth. So I'm super excited to have you here, Ma. Thank you. And then just over to the next to her, we've got Alex Florschutz. And she has also been in the field for many years. She is an artist, author, and curator. She is the author of The Art of Birth, Empower Yourself for Conception, Pregnancy, and Birth, and is passionate about helping women harness their inner wisdom and helping them have pleasurable and joyous pregnancies and births and journeys into motherhood. Thank you, Alex, for being here. And on the bottom, we have Kemi Johnson. She as well has been in the field for over 20 years. She's an independent midwife, a passionate birth advocate, and she is the founder of Invisible Midwives and part of the team at Childbirth Choices Matter in the UK. Thank you again for being here, all you beautiful women. Again, our topic today I think is very potent, and it's about healing the practices of birth and how this can impact the earth and our societies and our culture. If we go back hundreds and thousands of years ago, birth was is women's world. It was beautiful, it was sacred, it was raw, it was natural, and it was a rite of passage for many women. But however, in our current mainstream world, we've gone kind of completely the opposite. And I feel that there's a lot of information, there's more information coming out there about how our current practices are traumatic for women. There's less information out there about how our current mainstream birthing practices affect babies and how this can be traumatic for them as they go through this birthing process. So I really want to open up there to how you see this and what your thoughts are on how we've gotten kind of lost or so far away from our practices that we've had thousands of years ago, and how this is impacting babies and mothers and families. Maybe Binnie, do you want to start?
Wow. Big question.
Yeah.
And I think that the Ooh. The way we are birthing our babies literally instills fear. Fear of pain, fear of the body, fear of birth. And birth is the metaphor for the creative process. So, I think Descartes has a lot to answer for. The body is not a machine. The body is physical, and conscious. So, as women went into cities, men took over. I mean, the burnings, oh my God, all of that happened, and women were diminished, their power diminished, and men began to take over birth, bottom line. Now, on some level, I have to believe in my heart of hearts that that most of them just want mother to be comfortable. They want mommy to be okay, but they don't understand the power and the energy and the empowerment of giving birth in all of your energy. Yeah, I mean, I've been on this subject for 40 years, like 45 even. I feel very, very strongly about the subject and about women's responsibility, actually, for I gave birth in a train wreck birth, and then my second son, 2 years ago, was painless, and I had an orgasm. So I know that woman is partly responsible for the choices that we make. But I think modern birthing practices have literally instilled fear at a cellular level to almost every baby that's been born for the last 100 years, 150 years.
Yes. Thank you, Binnie. Kemi, do you want to comment on any, add your thoughts?
Are you muted?
Oh, hold on.
Were you hearing me earlier?
Oh yeah, now we got you.
What Binnie has said, because the question is so huge, just starts to it really resonated with me. Yes, at the root of it, fear is being instilled in every person birthing and every person born. So it really is impregnating the earth. And I often wonder about my own choosing. Like Binnie, my first birth was a total train wreck. And then I started making some choices because, leaving myself over to where I'd been steered clearly wasn't an option the second time. So it's a combination, I think, of my poor choices and just making this personal. Because I know that there are women who make great choices, think they've chosen great support, think they're in the safest environment. And then you've got birth workers who are also steeped in fear, doing everything that sabotages a birth. It literally sabotages it. So it could be timing, situation, or it could be the environment, or it could be the massive clock on the wall, or it could be the door that has no lock, so it's constantly being pushed in and out and in and out. It could be the words that they're using because they're steeped in fear and lack confidence. So they then go and pour their vile energy all over a situation.
Yeah.
That is so finely tuned, so super conscious, so sacred, that it could be so easily and permanently and horrifically derailed. Because I think it's because it's such an important moment, or a series of moments that have a life, can last a whole life. The after effects, you know, that, and then we go and stamp all over it, cough all over it. Sorry, that's a bit timely, but you know, we go and do things to it that are irreparable, virtually irreparable. And sometimes I get quite fierce, and I think it's just pure lack of respect for the woman and a female process, and not recognizing what that means for generations to come. So yeah, when I bring it down to, I think it's just a lack of knowledge and a lack of respect on all our parts. And then you've got that poor baby who's receiving all the effects of it on their little bodies, and then try and live a life despite the huge errors that have been made around childbirth. I'm sorry if that's a bit broad brush, but I honestly think it's a hot mess and we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Kemi. That was very wise and so true. Thank you. Maha, do you want to add to that?
Well, you know, as a birth educator who's traveled the world teaching in many countries, you know, there's a running theme that I see. And I'm of Palestinian Lebanese origin. So I come from very deep, ancient lineage where my grandmother gave birth to 9 babies in our birthing house in Al-Kubab in Palestine. So when I teach, and the last 10 years I've been teaching a lot of birth keepers, and what I've realized is, and I wrote a little bit about it today actually to share, is that one of the places, the first place that we need to begin with birth, I believe, is what do we all believe birth's purpose to be? The truest purpose of birth. What is its gifts? What is its deep sacred purpose? Now, if we look at that, what we'll find is everyone has a different attitude or belief around what birth's purpose is. And what that does is it underpins the kind of care that we give to mothers. So if I believe that birth is a medical event, a pathology of a mother's body and baby, that I disrespect the feminine, and I just want to get that baby out, then my care will reflect that attitude and that belief. If I truly believe that birth is the greatest sacred portal that women go through with their babies into this spiritual experience of the highest value and the highest respect for all of humanity, then my care will reflect that. So my care will be filled with love, compassion, truth, respect, all of those things. You cannot force someone who has a belief around pathology and that birth is an emergency. You can't sway them unless somewhere in their own psyche, they wake up to the true nature of birth's purpose and gift. And whatever that takes is each person's personal evolution as a birth keeper. When we work with women, when we awaken to this idea that birth is spiritual, we can't do that kind of disrespectful care anymore. We will walk away when we deeply know in our heart that birth is of the greatest value in the importance of life for humanity.
Yeah.
It is, as I say, birth is not a medical emergency. It is a spiritual emergence.
Yeah.
And one of the very first things I do when I teach, and I've been in China for the last 3 years, and I teach the midwives and the doctors and the obstetricians, and I go around the circle one by one, and I ask one pertinent question, and I ask them, why are you doing this job? Why do you do what you're doing in birth? And they're stunned at such a question, like nobody's ever asked them. What brought you here? Why are you doing this? What do you believe about birth? And honestly, it's very affronting to many of these birth keepers to actually have to dig deep and ask oneself,
Yep.
Why am I standing on the cutting edge of life, on the precipice of life and death? Why am I here? And how do I do this? So inherently, it comes back to, what are my beliefs and attitudes around birth? This is the foundational question we need to ask, and we need to start here in order to make change happen. Because if we are all on different levels, we're all giving care from a very different intention and place. So that is, I think, an important place to start.
Yeah, I mean, the consciousness is paramount.
Yes.
Absolutely paramount to any kind of shift.
That's right.
Yes, so beautiful. Thank you. And Alex, would you like to add in here?
Yes, I mean, I resonate with what everyone's been saying. I'd like just to answer that in 3 parts. Most recently, my sister has given birth, and I was there with her at the sort of the first phone call she made to the doctor and the midwife, and there was an immediate assumption that she would give birth in hospital. So which hospital have you chosen? Then I went to her first midwife meeting, and it was, you're an older mother, you know, you're at higher risk. Here are the tests you can have. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And I was sitting there and I was having a body reaction of like, you know, this is not a nice, not a nice situation, you know, and I had to challenge her on a couple of things, and you know, and then she was saying, oh, you're not, we can't have you at the birthing center because you're too old, you know, and it's dangerous, and all these messages. So I think, you know, to say what Kemi was saying, you know, the language that midwives or birth keepers use for pregnant women or obstetricians, you know, is it sort of fear-based or empowering? And you know, I just think messages are so important. The next thing I was thinking about is the messages I received from my own mother about how terrible her birth was and traumatic, and I never once thought, well, what about my experience as a baby? You know, I came into the world in this, you know, experience. I felt really bad for my mum. I felt like I wish I hadn't been born because I caused her so much, you know, pain and suffering. And yet I never considered what my experience was within that. Thirdly, when I gave birth, so it's another personal quick story, I was pregnant in Bali in Indonesia, and although it's not perfect there or anywhere, I personally received very positive, empowering messages that birth was easy, natural. My husband at the time had given birth at home, and he was put in a banana leaf filled with flower petals, and all the family sang to him, you know, into the world. And I just was like, oh my God, I didn't know anything so beautiful could exist. I didn't even know that people could give birth at home and it wasn't, you know, dangerous. So that was my first awakening of, okay, there's something really beautiful and empowering in this. Came back to the UK when I was 6 months pregnant, and again I was met with this, you know, this wall of fear, you know, first birth, dangerous, you know, you're this blood group, and you know, and it was sort of, caving in on me, and I just felt like there's got to be another way. And I was very lucky, a little bit of promotion here, to go to a conference where Binnie was speaking, and some other powerful, you know, scientists and people that were imparting their lived experience knowledge.
Michelle was there, actually.
Yeah, Michelle O'Donnell. Yeah. And I suddenly got all these messages about how powerful and amazing birth could be. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize. And I didn't realize that, you know, my body could be safe. My body could know what to do. I just had to sort of somehow work with that flow. And so I went on to do the work that Binnie has been sharing these last 40 years. And I can say without the shadow of a doubt, it works. It was amazing. And it was about healing my own fears, my own birth, you know, healing that original experience, and somehow integrating into my body that me and my body would know what to do. And if nature had other intentions, you know, we don't know how it's going to work out necessarily. That was fine, because I knew my body would do its best. And that, you know, and I had an amazing, beautiful home birth, and it was the most empowering experience of my life. And that spurred me on to do the work that I've been doing ever since, through training to be an art psychotherapist, and obviously being an artist. I felt that art and pregnancy and birth were parallel creative processes, and that what I was hearing is women's stories about their traumatic experiences. And I felt like, gosh, you know, they're, including my mother, carrying these experiences around in their body, in their, you know, psyche, in their cellular memory. And I felt this needed to be healed. You know, how could we move on in life if we've had the most profound experience, whether it's been obviously our own birth, but also if we've had children and whatever's happened, that we carry that experience around, and yet nobody considers that. It's like, oh, well, women give birth, you know, it's difficult, it's painful, you know, we've inherited the Eve complex that, you know, you'll go forth and give birth in great pain and you just get on with it. And yet women sort of suffer in silence. So I felt like art was a really powerful way of healing those experiences, without feeling like you were going into therapy or anything too serious like that. So healing through art was amazing. And my project, this art and science exhibition I've been working on the last 4 years, which started in Parliament, you know, is all about the experience of pregnancy and after birth on the baby and the baby's neurodevelopment, etc. But they miss out birth. So there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yes. Oh, thank you, everyone. These are such beautiful shares, and there is still a lot of work to be done. And, you know, like as Kemi and Binnie had tapped on, we are really tapping into this underlying fear that we're working with. And so let alone we're having it bombarded at us as pregnant women, but then that's also being instilled into us when we enter this world. And so this is also, you know, this is like you all tapped on, like this you know, we're carrying this in our DNA, in our cells, and this is impacting us as a culture. And as Maha said, is like we really need to also be that self-reflective and working and healing within ourselves. And so yeah, this is really beautiful. And I kind of, you tapped on it, Binnie. So like, how did this all start to change? Because, you know, Alex kind of pinpointed, like in Bali, where, you know, babies wrapped in banana leaves, and it's really beautiful, and it's a sacred process, and there's celebration, and you have the community, and that's such a beautiful ritual and a beautiful sacred rite of passage. But how did this start to get lost in our current culture? When did this fear start being instilled that we weren't able, in this distrust in our bodies? Like, what do you think? I'm open up to anyone who wants to start.
I said earlier, and I feel very strongly about, indigenous cultures did not have and have not had the strong patriarchal and economic forces forced upon them. I mean, Bali, while it was even 20 years ago very different than it is now, these birthing practices are seeping in and sneaking in places because I think the pharmaceutical companies, I swear though, I think it all goes back because, I work and have been working for the last 35 years, mostly with adults healing their births, whether they're pregnant or not pregnant, whether they're male, female, because I deeply believe that the consciousness needs to change in mother, in father. And that's I just wrote a piece about that first water birth. That's what happened. There was not, we didn't go into that over the edge experience without some very deep diving into our own consciousness. So, when you talk about the purpose of birth, I think the deep purpose of birth is to express our love. It's an initiation. It's an initiation into being embodied in embodying love, not fear. And how many people greet their babies with, "Thank you for loving me so much. Thank you for coming forth." So how many people have that consciousness of, from the very beginning, I am a lover? It's like, oh. So I just feel so strongly. I was one of the plenary speakers at a conference at Findhorn about 3 years ago called Healthy Birth, Healthy Earth. And I was a mentor for one of the facilitators, so I was involved in that conference for 2 years before it ever happened. I saw the words healthy birth, healthy earth so many times, you wouldn't believe it. And it wasn't until the day before we began that I looked up and realized that if you took the words apart, just took healthy apart, you have heal thy birth, heal thy earth. Now, this can, to me, it's very personal. I feel very deeply and strongly about each pregnant woman and her partner healing their own birth trauma to the extent that is possible for them, and the birth keepers as well. So that's what has been my main focus. But because I know that when we instill, it's not safe to have a body, which happens on the delivery table. There's no one here for me when they get put away in a little box someplace for even a moment. Scrubbed up. Woo, look, there you are. There's no choice about it. There's something dreadfully wrong. And these are archetypal thought forms that are instilled in every one of us with the first breath. And that's my intention to heal, because each person is an expression of love. I'm convinced in my bones.
Beautiful. Does anyone want to add to that?
Well, that's right. The purpose of birth, Binnie, is to raise love consciousness. And, you know, we know with all the work that Dr. Michelle O'Dont has done and talked about, that the hormone oxytocin is the hormone of love. And when we take that hormone away and women birth without their natural flow of oxytocin, what that then does is the adrenaline, the cortisol, and then the fear rises. And I think that women, before they even step into the pregnancy journey, are already, as you say, carrying that level of fear within the body.
From their birth.
And yes, so in embodied birth, the work that I do is really about taking a look at the fears that we carry, and we need to see that fears are in two camps, as I talk about. So we have imposed fears that are external fears that become imposed upon us, and then we have our innate internal fears, which are normal universal fears that so many women carry on this journey. So one of the ways we first work in the realm of fear is to look at what is mine, what is innately mine, what do I truly fear, and what are those fears that are impositions or have been placed in my field of consciousness that are not mine, that they could be my mother-in-law, my doctor, my birth, you know, the neighbor, the woman I sat next to on the bus. So what we do is we list those fears and we really feel into our body to be able to ask ourselves as mothers, is this mine? Is it truly mine? Or can I let it go? Because when we carry those fears, we carry them in our bodies. And this is this hunching, and the constriction in the body is often because of those layers of fear. So when we work with body, breath, sound, and I work with dance and movement, I can see the language, the narrative that's in the body. And when we start doing these kinds of exercises, what you find is women slowly start to blossom into the flower of love consciousness that is theirs. And that is where the body speaks, when we create that expansive space within the body, where we can let go of constriction through breath, through movement, through dance. Let go. So that it's the rational with the heart, the emotion with the intellect. They all dance together so we can come into that place, not where I'm lacking something, but where I am abundantly clear about the vision of my journey. That's when I can start to envision what it is that my body and my baby is speaking to me to create the journey that I choose, that I would like. Whether that's the journey you get or not, that's not the point. The point is to create those clear channels so I can step into saying, I am. This is what I need. This is what I want. And as Alex was saying, I say, Alex, there are 9 words that put great fear into a doctor. And those 9 words are, I know what I am doing as a mother. Shock, horror, gasp, that you know what you're doing? How you can't know what you want or what you are doing. And, you know, I tell the story because I gave birth to my last at 46, a home birth. And that's exactly what I told the doctor, who tried to put this fear into me. As Alex said, you're geriatric, you're old. You know, what if something goes wrong? And I looked him in the eye and I said, Doc, how about this for an idea? What about if everything goes right? What about the possibility of abundance? And what else could be possible? Because I know what I am doing as a mother. I've given birth before. And the shock on his face that I was standing up to his authority, knowing what I was doing and speaking the language of the feminine, my own language, not his medical jargon, but my own language, because I felt it in my body. I did know what I was doing. And if I didn't, I have a voice. I will ask, I will speak up, I will seek for assistance. I'm not infantile. I'm a grown, mature woman having a baby, as are all women.
Darling,
And
50 years ago, when I gave birth, I had learned about Lamaze in
Mhm.
France. I think there were 2 books in the English language. I went to the library, I got all the books. I took them to my obstetrician. I said, okay, here's the way I'm going to give birth. He went, what? You know? And
That's it.
but he, thank you, God, the goddess, he went right along with me.
And even if he doesn't,
It,
the power does not lie with him. The power lies with you.
no, I'm just really grateful that he did.
Yes, of course, of course. But what I'm saying is, if we don't need to hand our power, we need to find our power and work with that power and inherently know that I can do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we need to start with that positivity.
Women have given up their power, and power is actually choice.
Yes.
It's a choice about what to think, about how to use my energy. I can use my energy to go, oh, okay, you know better about me than I did. Oh, forget it. No,
No, that's
I
right.
know
I
my
think,
body and I know my energy, and I will use it my way.
But then again, that's agency.
Mhm.
And the reason why we're here today is because we're quite comfortable with speaking. And there'll be so many people that have been raised in situations that don't have that have never practiced it. Again,
yeah.
fear comes in. What happens to me? You know, fear of annihilation for speaking or pushing back. So that's where, again, I think those of us, like, you know, I clearly, it took me years to hold and receive that title birth keeper. I just didn't felt I deserved it until I'd reached a certain point. But you have people that are birth workers or healthcare professionals that take the woman's silence as consent for them being done too. So to me, that's quite criminal. So, you know, even if someone hasn't found their voice in their life, it doesn't give a professional license
Thank you.
to do things to them. So I think the responsibility, I honestly think the responsibility is on those of us that visit these things, women and children. Yes, so to a certain extent, women have choice, but they may have not even been confronted with an opportunity to use it or to find their voice. Nevertheless, they should be safe with us, and they're definitely not. So, and that's quite criminal.
How do we change it?
Yeah.
How many children do I have? I gave birth to 2 and I raised 5, and they're magnificent. They're magnificent.
Because I think it goes beyond, you know, birthing, and it's how, you know, women, girls, you know, we come into the world and they're still, you know, you need to be a good girl. You know, you can't touch your down there. You know, we can't even use the word vulva or vagina or orgasms or anything to do with our sexuality. Our sexuality is either, you know, shameful, or you have to kind of keep it to one side because you're being a good girl and following the sort of social, you know, norms. You know, and so, and then all the pressure from outside, you know, from the media, from sort of expectations. So it's sort of like girls start out, you know, unless you have really sort of empowered people around you, already on this sort of trajectory of, you know, keep yourself under control. You know, you're too much, you're too big, you're too this, you know, everything gets criticized about being a woman or being a girl. And so when it comes to giving birth, I mean, I believe in the UK, people used to give birth at home until about the 40s, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And because it was cleaner to give birth in hospital, women started to give birth in hospital, and then that became the sort of the norm. and the place where you were most safe, and then the the medical sort of profession became the sort of the god that kind of controlled the birthing process. And I believe that every woman wants to do the best and be safe and do the best for her baby. And it's not surprising that we sort of believe that that environment is the best place, and we believe what we're told because we want to do the best. So it's sort of, I guess, if all of us speak different truths, offer different pictures, that women can sort of gradually start to realize that perhaps there are other ways, that that they do have choice and they do have power, and how they tap into that power. And I also think it comes back to healing their own birth experience, their own birth story, whatever that is, because that laid the sort of the blueprint for the decisions you make throughout your life. And as Binnie was saying, there's sort of some very archetypal sort of thought patterns, like, I'm alone and separate, I'm not good enough, all of these things, and they all kind of originate from birth, which babies were always separated, still are. They get whisked off to do checks and what have you. And never do I hear of anyone saying, you can do it, you're a strong, powerful woman, just support that, support the woman to, because I think it also has, we can say women have to empower themselves, yes, but I also think that birth keepers, midwives, obstetricians, also need to offer some empowerment, because we're still kind of believing them as the authority. So it's sort of, I see it as twofold.
Well, that's what Kemi was saying, and I absolutely agree that birth keepers, birth workers are definitely a place to where very real work needs to be done, because their own births are being triggered at every birth. Your whole body is being reminded of your own birth. That's why so many protocols are needed. So many, notes need to be taken to get their minds off of this intense emotion that they're feeling. And if they could come into the sacredness, if they could handle and be with their own energy, it would be so beautiful. And however a person heals, I mean, I love hearing you speak about the two columns. Is this mine? Is this, my own fear, or is this something that's been brought in from outside? However a woman does that work of healing herself, I work with the breath and those archetypals to get to the core. But however they do it, that work really needs to be done and could be done. I still think 11-year-olds are where we need to begin, if not in the birth, if not in the delivery room. I still think there needs to be a Girl Scout badge in woman.
Yeah.
They get a cooking badge. They got me. I got a cooking badge. Anyway, there, I think programs for us still, I feel really strongly about it. And it comes up in every discussion that I'm in of this sort, is start before pre-menses with the empowerment, with, talking about the hand that rocks the cradle does rule the world, actually. And we've allowed ourselves to, go belly up instead of taking our place.
I've just given a talk to University of Middlesex students in social care and midwifery or something, and I've done it for the 4th year running, and it's amazing because they always come back to me and say, oh my God, you know, that was so inspiring. I just didn't even have a clue that there was all this other sort of information, you know, and they'll be going into those professions, and yet they've not even heard of someone being able to give birth at home, for example. Not that that is the only place to do it, to have a good birth, I'm not saying that, but you know, that it can be an empowering experience, or you know, a sacred experience. And they were just sort of, they always come up to me and go, oh my God, you know, like super excited, like, oh my God, I've got to do something about this, which, you know, is amazing. So I think the more we teach and inspire, you know, then hopefully we can, the ripple effects.
And I wanted to also say that if we are talking about an experience of the body, which we've been talking about, the breath, the movement, the body, in my Middle Eastern culture, and you know, my daughter's 12 now, the way that I teach her how to give birth is not through talk. I don't tell her, I don't educate her through the intellect. As I say in embodied birth, the baby doesn't come out of your head. The baby comes out of your pelvis, out of your vagina, get down to earth. So in Arab culture, when I belly dance with my daughter and I move my hips and my pelvis, I am teaching her the dance of birth.
Beautiful.
Through osmosis, through the somatic practice. And, you know, I'm from Eastern culture. I've been educated in the West, and I keep going back in my birth work back to the East, because there is so much wisdom that is ancient, universal. It is a lineage of the mother line, and it is passed on through storytelling and through the narrative in the body. And I think we've got to also come back, because we need to be able to move energy within the body to birth, to teach, to share. And that's why I love belly dance birth and embodied birth. We do the talking, but then we let it all go. I say, know everything and know nothing. Allow the mystery to unfold. And I think this is the big problem we have. Women are going into birth, their heads are filled up with all this information. And when it comes into the body, suddenly I have to meet the rhythms of my body. I have to meet the energy. I have to expand into, and I don't know how, because I've thought it all. It's all up here. So the mystery being my story, how do I meet in every unfolding moment the gift that birth is giving me with my baby? So I have to be able to work with 3 things only: my body, my baby, and my inner wisdom. That is all I have at the end of the day. When I'm on all fours and those contractions, or as we call them, expansions, move like waves through my body, spiraling through my body, I have to meet that energy. My body, my baby, my inner wisdom.
The 4th one, the breath. When you're on,
and the breath, yes.
Add the breath.
The breath. Yes, absolutely. And the sound, breath, and movement. Yep. Exactly. But I'm not thinking it. I'm feeling. And this is what we are losing in education in the world. Global education is all up here.
Fundamental, though, that we are instilling this fear of body into every baby that is born in a high-tech way.
Yes.
Both men and women are walking around. I mean, longevity is a really lovely gift that you get at the end of the day by becoming more embodied, coming more into your body, finding out that it's absolutely safe to be with this instrument. It's not who you are. Most people are walking around thinking, I am a body. No, you're not. But they're terrified of the body. that first contraction is like, oh, all of the things that they know goes right out the window. Oh my God, I didn't know it was going to feel like this. Well,
And that's why that's so important and of such great value to have birth education that mirrors the feminine experience of birth. What we are doing, we're teaching in a very masculine way. Most birth keepers, I have taught thousands. I've stood up in China to 2,000. I've got them to stand up, to move their hips from side to side and forward and back. Do you think they can do? No, they're terrified. They are so stuck. And I say, how can you be with woman if you're not with your own woman? It makes sense. It's the simplicity of the body, the breath, the movement. Yeah. Too much up here. Get down to earth, get down to birth. We're talking about heal earth through birth. We become her. We carry earth. Every baby is born on country, on their mother's womb. How do I learn about birth? Through my mother's mother's mother. I sat in her womb. I lived that womb experience. And that's what I heal and pass and have the opportunity to work with and into, to expand that consciousness of love that we speak about. That's what will heal this earth.
Absolutely. We need to initiate a whole new consciousness.
Yes.
Truly. Birth.
I'd like to just add something. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Finish, Binnie.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it'd be interesting to have your opinion. My son, who's nearly 21, and his girlfriend, we were chatting the other day, and they're very open about, you know, wanting children, and they can't wait. And my son is just like, oh, you know, I just can't wait to be a dad, and he's really excited about that. And yet they were saying that most girls that they know, you know, don't want to have children, and it's that the boys that want to have children more than the girls, which I thought was really amazing, you know, and kind of quite strange, because back in my day, you know, you'd never mention children because men would be sort of out the door and down the street. But now it seems to be sort of reversed, that at least my son, perhaps my son's friends, are all kind of up for having families, and the girls are just like, no way, not doing that. So I thought that was an interesting comment of someone sort of who's young, and what that means for these young girls who, you know, perhaps feel that it's more empowered to have careers. You know, nothing wrong with that, but somehow children
it's fear.
Yeah. So, yeah.
In disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked about so much. This is, I feel like, going in a really beautiful direction, and I kind of want to start. I mean, we still have a bit more time, and I would just like to go a little deeper. So we've been talking about like ways that we make this change. You know, it's like Kemi's like, we need to educate and talk to the birth keepers and the birth workers to start, you know, sharing the knowledge, because knowledge is power. This is, you know, many women are not getting the knowledge to help them have the empowering birth. So we start there, and then it's like us making choices. And Binnie is saying, you know, then it's also about healing our own births, you know, and you know, we were talking about what Maha was talking about, getting into the body, but we're being birthed in trauma, so that automatically we're detaching from the body, and that's how we're never really in the body, and we have that fear, because if we go into the body, then we have to feel everything. And so these are, you know, a few of the things that, you know, we're tapping on, like how do we start to heal the birth? Like, how do we, you know, and these are a few things. So let's maybe get a little bit more on like solutions and you know, where we go from here, because there are a lot of women and a lot of birth keepers, and a lot of the knowledge is getting out there, but it still seems like we have a lot more work to do. Maybe, does anyone want to open up with that, Kemi? Maybe.
I think that we've talked about, Maha does the incredible belly dancing. When you spoke about those women standing up and being terrified to move their hips, you know, this is the essence of be a good girl. You know, it's like, oh, I don't have a body, right? I think this is, you know, how to heal your birth. There are many ways. The way I do it is with the breath, is working with the breath, getting in touch with the somatic experience. Plus, I use the breath to nourish new ways of thinking, not necessarily intellectual, but these very archetypal, fundamental thoughts that I think you can hear when you're walking down the street, like, it's not safe to have a body. My body hurts. There's no one here for me. You know, it's like for a woman who's pregnant to learn to receive support, if she's come through the body of a woman and her mother through the other woman who thinks she has to do it all by herself, it's very difficult. So, I mean, these, you know, that's the way I support people to breathe and remember. And I have experience after experience after experience of people literally remembering delivery room colors and things like that. You know, we carry the memory in every cell in our body of everything that's ever happened, but it's in the emotional brain. It's in the you know, and the limbic system, which is, the body is the language for the limbic system. The emotional brain does not have language. So it's very important to get into the body in order to remember.
Mm. Can I add as well? I think, Sam, I hear you. Yeah, there are definitely several solutions, and it's difficult to bring it down to a couple of things. I think all of it has to be happening, and all of it is happening. Just to say that we've been talking about home birth for several decades, and the only reason why home birth is now regaining traction is because of fear, again, because of this situation we have with the COVID-19 disease. Many more people are now choosing home birth in this country, in the UK. So you know, despite whatever's happening with regard to health generally, the outcome is that more families are confronting their initial fears about childbirth and giving birth at home and becoming empowered. So you know, I mean, there's something else that's come up quite often in our discussion here about the good girl. Mm-hmm. And I think there are many more people now that have had to unchoose the path of good girl to get what's safe and what's right for them. So I think, you know, once we're all doing it once, you know, then we'll do it again, and then we'll tell a friend, and then they'll feel safe to not obey the rules. And so I also really think that is a movement that's gaining traction. I do. So I used to feel quite hopeless, actually, that we will ever heal birth and heal the earth. But by some kind of circumstance, I'm feeling quite positive, and myself starting to break a few rules. So it's
yes.
It's amazing just to become part of that, and then join other people and hear what they're doing that is healing birth to heal the earth. So I actually feel quite positive. You know, coming in towards the end of 2020, I feel quite positive that we're going to do this. Again, it's been very slow, but you know, time doesn't really exist for me. So I'm okay with that also. I think we're changing things.
Yeah.
You know, I've been an admirer of belly dancing and just finding my body for a long time. And sometimes I do transfer a lot of head knowledge when I'm teaching, but I also get people to get up and move, because, you know, how are you going to get a baby out if you don't want to move your hips, you know?
Exactly.
But, so I think not being a good girl, you know, sitting with your legs open, winding your bottom, winding your waist, all of these things that we've been taught, you know, decent girls don't do. I'm really happy to, you know, kind of embody that, share that, encourage that. And I really think that all of us, that all that we're doing and many others, I think it's all coming round to the same place, which is healing the feminine, thus healing birth, thus healing the earth. I remind people often that, you know, everyone who is here has come through a woman's body, whether you want to identify as a woman or not. Everyone on the planet has come through a woman's body. So one way or the other, we're all going to come back around to respecting the woman and what we're able to do. Because if we stop doing it, we all cease to exist.
And we are in tune with Mother's mind.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's also about creating the language that is the truth to us, not someone else's words. And I think that's where we as women, when we step into the birthing arena, we're not speaking the language of our own heart and our own consciousness and our own experience. We're trying to fit into, which relates to the good girl syndrome, we're trying to fit into the constructed woman, the constructed female, that isn't part of our lived experience. And then we're losing the truth of the language where we want to express what it is for us. And the language of the feminine, there's a lot of emotion there as well, you know, energy in motion, emotion. And I think that we don't give enough space and time and patience, because when we are in the birthing sphere, in the field of birth, what's actually happening is we are moving and shifting through the layers of our body. So what happens in birth is women are stopped. So if I'm in labor and an emotion rises through my body, a memory, a trigger, anything, because I'm in that deep theta state of birth, it's going to open caverns and channels and portals that I am sitting on. And the purpose of birth is to open, to release, to heal, to feel, and then let it go. And then I expand further and excavate further through the layers of the body. What happens to women is they are robbed of this experience of healing the lineage. This is the problem. Yeah. So we come to our postpartum and we feel like, what just happened to me? I didn't get that opportunity to excavate through my emotional, psychic layers with my baby.
I didn't get something to help you with the pain.
Yes, that's right. Pain is your power, your purpose. It is your guide. It is what enables us. But if we don't get that opportunity to meet who we are, meet thyself, what you were talking about, Binnie, heal thyself, we must be able to shift through those layers. But the medical system, the industrial system, whatever you want to call it, does not understand the emotionality and spirituality of birth. And when I go right back to what I was talking about, what is its purpose? For me, birth's purpose is to raise consciousness and to evolve humanity for peace and love and compassion. And the antithesis of that is what is happening every single day to 360,000 women who give birth. Imagine if they were able to experience themselves. They're terrified because we hold the power in birth.
Exactly.
And the
And
patriarchy
I think
is
I don't think they don't understand. I think they do understand.
and
And
terrified.
a powerful financial,
Yeah.
very powerful financial and political reason
Yes.
for
That's
especially
right.
the finance. You know, it's like the pharmaceutical salespeople are the ones who are teaching the doctors, not
Yes.
not people like us.
No, they don't want us. They're
No.
terrified that the truth will out. And I keep going and I keep teaching it. But somewhere people feel it in their heart.
They do.
When I speak this truth, they go, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
they
The
do.
body.
We have to get to them. You know, they feel sometimes they feel it in the heart.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Somewhere.
I told the story in this piece I wrote about the 40th anniversary of the first water birth. Is I went to see a doctor, an obstetrician who I knew and who was really known for encouraging alternatives, right? And I sat down to tell him about the fact that we wanted to do this water birth and we wanted him, you know, would he be involved? And he said, Binnie, the baby will drown. I said, pardon? I have a degree in history. And even I know that the baby's in water right now. It's not drowning. It's like, give me a breath.
I know. It's
I mean,
hilarious.
you know, and this is 40 years ago, and I'm sure I could find somebody who would give me the same response.
I was told that 10 years ago. I was at kind of a meeting, cheese and wine thing with obstetricians. And someone came up to me and said, there's something very silly that you do. And I said, what's that? And he said, those water births. And I said, why are they silly? He said, well, supposing that poor infant drowns. So that was said to me 10 years ago. I actually felt a flutter of joy as well. The fact that every single thing or every single apparent obstacle that we're having, it's just occurred to me, we could cure with disobedience. So it literally each
I love that. So
I mean, I think you've all done it. You've all been like, "Oh, you're too old to have a home birth." I went away and had a home birth, you know. So I think it's encouraging others to see that if you break the rules, you're still going to be okay. If you're disobedient, it's still okay. If you're not a good girl, you'll be okay. And I think if there's nothing else that each of us can do, we can just do that. I think rather than being quite cagey about when we said no, I think we need to scream from the rooftops the times when we did the exact opposite of what we were told and how well it went.
Yeah,
definitely.
So amazing, like that. And what you tapped on earlier, Kemi, is like, and then there's also like what I hope for is like holding space and bringing people together and getting this message out there more, because it's with togetherness. Like we all are kind of doing our thing and sharing our message and we as the birth keepers and the wisdom holders, but there's now, it's like coming together collectively. And this is the feminine way. Like we've been living in this patriarchal way where it's very individualistic, but that's not feminine. You know, there's like competitiveness and like, I'm doing this and this is what I'm doing and I'm not going to share it with anyone, or I'm doing this all by myself. I have to carry the weight on my shoulders all by myself. But that's another way that has to crumble. And we need to, as women, come together. I think that's
100%. 100%.
I'm grateful that you have brought this group together.
Yeah.
I'm deeply moved by every one of you, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. I'm so happy. I feel like crying.
Oh, I mean, you know, the way I work is through art. You know, because I think art, like the movement and the breath, you know, it also bypasses the intellect, and accesses your sort of unconscious, your subconscious. And what I find with, pregnant women or non-pregnant people, whoever comes to me for art therapy or, birth preparation, that it's such an empowering experience. Most people come and the first thing they say is, oh, I'm not very good at art. I was never very good at art at school. My teacher told I was rubbish, etc. And being in a space where there's no judgment, and that whatever mark they make on the page or what they create is totally perfect and unique and for them. And then they learn to, express things that they wouldn't be able to say in words. And the release of that can be, really, really deep and profound. And so I think, whatever birth preparation we do, I think art is a really powerful component, along with movement, just to get these memories and these thought patterns and fears or joys, even, the joy of connecting to your baby and just going deeper within yourself and creating a new narrative, is incredibly powerful. And also making a mess. Birth is messy, and doing art can sometimes be very messy. And yet, quite often we'll be sat there with, sort of clean clothes and, sort of dabbing with the brush, and it's all a bit sort of over there, and so to actually get down and earthy and dirty and messy and use your hands with the paint is also very liberating, because it kind of takes you out of that sort of place of self-control, which we live in so much. And another thing I find is, which is, not always a very talked about area, is women who've experienced sexual abuse or molestation. And if we take the Me Too movement, literally everyone I know has had some experience, and that has a direct influence on one's sexuality, on one's body, one's feeling of safety. So I think there needs to be healing on that level as well, for us to kind of be able to stand up for our rights and for our power and say, no, I want to do it my way. If you've been sort of shut down and kind of made to keep secrets and made to feel shameful, our body is innocent, our sexuality is innocent. And I think that is an area of also of healing. And art is a really good way to.
I think your art and being disobedient is like kind of matches, it's like getting just crazy with, and it could be movement, like tapping into your wildness within us, like movement, dance, and also with art, and that's the disobedience, like not to by the rules or being so lenient that we operate.
Express your rage, express your grief, express your sensuality, just go for it. Get all that energy out of your body, rage for the patriarchy, rage for the suppression of women, rage for what's done to us, grieve for it, move through it, paint it, breathe it, sing it, play it, music, all the arts, incredibly powerful, just get it out.
Yes, I feel so good. I feel like really excited. And but yeah, it's like that's what when we actually feel it, that's when it can transmute and can heal, and that's how we start to raise the vibration. We change. We come into this love consciousness, and this is how healing happens. And let's do it together.
You are healing.
And we say in body birth, we don't want women to birth in fear, but we want you to birth through your fear. It's a different context. It's not that we go into birth or any of this without any emotion or no fear or no rage or no joy, or it's what every emotion is valuable and valid. How do I work with that? How do I work through that? Rather than the need to suppress and repress and hide. But if I am with a birth keeper or a midwife or a doctor or an obstetrician who has no understanding as I said before, of the emotionality of the experience,
Yeah.
I am going to close down more. I'm not going to open to the experience.
That's why support is so important.
Mm.
So important, yeah, to teach birth keepers the true nature of this experience. And the only way we can express that is to speak our truth. Birth your truth, speak your truth. Yeah, that's part of the whole don't obey. It's about being in your truth on this journey and show it. Be brave, be courageous.
And it is necessary to be in an environment where it's safe to do that,
Yes.
where it's encouraged, where it's received.
Yes. Yeah. And
So
truly, not
we have
falsely.
this process going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we feel the vigilance that we have when we are pregnant, the vulnerability, the sensitivity, the psychic ability to feel deeply is so underestimated. In fact, it's never even spoken about. We are vibrating at these incredible levels when we are pregnant and moving through the portal of birth. We feel everything when our body's open. Yeah. So there's this idea, there's a lack of understanding of the spiritual nature of the birth and experience and the journey that we go on. And that's what I try to impart and teach and bring out of women. You know, it's like we just got to be like soldier on and don't show emotion, don't feel, don't speak your truth, just do as you're told. It's a canvas, it's an art canvas. You are painting the new canvas of life, the colors, the shades, the everything on this journey. Each woman is unique.
And I mean, Kemi, you know, it's like, it is so important that they are surrounded by support, by people who know they can do it, who encourage this layer by layer expansion.
Yes.
And what, you know, the very person who is also there, whether it's father or partner, you know, also tends to get left out of the equation. And, you know, let's talk about men for a moment. You know, they have their own journey, and, you know, men are designed to sort of, you know, fix things and kind of make it better, and they don't always know what to do with this sort of powerful energy, and so they could be a bit sort of like rabbit in the headlights going, oh God, you know, what do I do? And I think there needs to be much more support for men and their journey and their process and, you know, their experience, and then, you know, and how their powerful role as supporters of the birthing woman and their child.
I think they need to prepare together. This is a consciousness of together, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They need to do it together. They made this baby together, you know.
I have to wrap it up now. I could keep talking to you for a while, but we've gone over an hour and I wanted to keep it around that. So I'm truly honored and so blessed to be here with all you amazing, wise women. And I'm just so honored and with all that you're doing and sharing in the world. And this is how we make change. This is like, you're making change and coming together. It's been so beautiful. And I see all of you and I honor all of you. And I'm internally grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So have a beautiful day for ladies in the UK, and Maha, I hope you have a beautiful sleep. And yes, and for all our viewers, if you want to know more about these amazing beings, just check, they'll have all their websites and social media handles down below. And stay tuned. This was actually the first roundtable for Birthing a New Earth, and I plan to have these regularly because I think we need to get, you know, this feminine power out there and around many topics, not just around birth. We've got lots of topics to talk about out there. And stay tuned for more about Birthing a New Earth. We have biannual gathering, and yeah, lots of amazing things in the pipeline. So thank you all for being here and sending so much love.
Thank you.